The music was pumping, the audience was dancing, and Ellen was in the middle of her signature moves when she noticed something that made her stop cold. A teenage girl in the third row was moving her hands in a way that wasn't dancing at all. It was supposed to be just another Friday afternoon taping at Warner Brothers studio. The Ellen DeGeneres show was featuring their popular Dance Your Heart Out segment, with Ellen wearing her favorite purple blazer, encouraging audience members to show off their best moves for prizes and pure joy. 16-year-old Maya Chen sat in the third row, wearing a bright yellow sweater that her grandmother had knitted for this special occasion. She had driven 8 hours from Fresno with her aunt, clutching a homemade sign that read, "Ellen, you're my hero," in colorful markers. But Maya had come with a secret that would transform this dance party into something much deeper. During the commercial break, Ellen had briefly waved to Maya. Noticing the girl's bright smile and enthusiastic energy, Maya had waved back with both hands, her movements precise and deliberate in a way that caught Ellen's trained eye. There was something intentional about her gestures that felt different from typical audience excitement. The show resumed with Ellen's usual energy, moving between audience members as they showed off their dance moves. She was encouraging a shy grandmother to join the dancing when her peripheral vision caught Maya again. This time Maya wasn't dancing, she was signing. Ellen's dance moves slowed as she watched Maya's hands move with fluid precision. The teenager wasn't just gesturing randomly. She was communicating in American Sign Language with a grace and speed that spoke of years of practice. Ellen had learned basic ASL for previous show segments, enough to recognize real signing when she saw it. Maya noticed Ellen watching and began signing more deliberately, her face serious despite the party atmosphere around her. Her hands moved with urgent purpose, spelling out letters and forming words that Ellen struggled to understand. The music was still playing, the audience still dancing, but Ellen found herself completely focused on this silent conversation. Ellen walked closer to Maya, the cameras following her instinctively. "Are you signing something to me, sweetheart?" Ellen asked, her voice curious but gentle, unaware that she was about to witness something that would stop her show entirely. Maya nodded enthusiastically, her eyes bright with tears that hadn't been there moments before. Maya's hands moved again, slower this time, as she carefully signed a message that Ellen partially understood. The words "father," "love," and "you" came through clearly, but the full meaning remained elusive. Ellen's expression shifted from entertainer to deeply curious human being. "I'm sorry, honey. I don't understand everything you're saying," Ellen admitted, stepping even closer to Maya's row. "Can you help me understand?" Maya reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, quickly typing a message that she held up for Ellen to see. The words on the screen made Ellen's breath catch. "My dad is deaf. He watches you every day by reading lips. He says you're his favorite person in the world, but he thinks you'll never know he exists." Ellen stopped moving entirely, her hand going to her heart as the weight of Maya's message sank in. The music was still playing, the audience still dancing, but Ellen was no longer part of the party. She was focused entirely on this 16-year-old girl who had just opened a window into a world Ellen had never considered. "Your father watches the show?" Ellen asked, her voice softer now, carrying a tenderness that the microphones picked up clearly. Maya nodded vigorously, typing another message on her phone with shaking fingers. The camera zoomed in as she held up the screen again. "He taught himself to read lips just so he could watch you. He says your smile is the same in every language." Ellen's eyes filled with tears as she read these words, understanding for the first time the profound impact her show had on someone she'd never met. Maya wasn't finished with her messages. Ellen watched as Maya typed frantically, tears now streaming down her face. The next message made Ellen forget entirely that she was on television, that hundreds of people were watching, that this was supposed to be entertainment. "He's been sick for months but never misses your show. He says watching you dance makes him forget the pain." The audience around them had begun to notice that something significant was happening. The dancing slowed, then stopped entirely, as people realized Ellen was having an intense conversation with someone in the crowd. Maya held up her phone one more time, and this message broke Ellen completely. "Can you please sign 'I love you too, Dad,' so he can see it when this airs? He doesn't know I'm here." Ellen's composure crumbled as she read these words, tears flowing freely down her face. The music stopped entirely as Ellen's production team realized something extraordinary was happening. Ellen wiped her eyes and looked directly at Maya. "What's your father's name, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. Maya quickly typed David Chen and held up the phone, along with a photo she'd been carrying of her father, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile. "David Chen," Ellen repeated, looking directly into the camera. "I don't know if you're watching right now, but your daughter Maya is here, and she wants me to tell you something." Ellen took a deep breath and carefully formed the signs for "I love you" in ASL, her movements deliberate and clear. But Ellen wasn't finished. She turned back to Maya, who was openly sobbing now. "Is your father here in Los Angeles?" Ellen asked gently. Maya shook her head and typed quickly. "He's in the hospital in Fresno. He made me promise to come anyway, because this was our dream together." Ellen's heart broke a little more with each revelation. She turned to her production team and made a decision that would define this moment forever. "Stop everything," she called out, her voice carrying across the studio with quiet authority. "We're doing something different today." She walked back to Maya and gently took her hands. "Your father sounds like an incredible man," Ellen said softly, "and you are an incredible daughter for loving him the way you do." Maya squeezed Ellen's hands, overwhelmed by the kindness and attention she was receiving. Ellen turned to address the entire studio audience, her voice clear and strong despite her tears. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something special today. Maya's father David is watching from a hospital bed in Fresno, and we're going to make sure he knows how much he's loved." The audience responded with warm applause, but Ellen held up her hand for quiet. "Maya, I want you to teach me how to sign something to your father," she said, pulling Maya gently from her seat to join her in the center aisle. "What would you most want him to know right now?" Maya thought for a moment, then began slowly teaching Ellen the signs for "You are not alone" and "You are so loved." Ellen repeated the movements carefully, asking Maya to correct her hand positions until she got them right. The cameras captured every moment of this impromptu ASL lesson. "David Chen," Ellen said, looking directly into the camera as she signed the words Maya had taught her. Her movements were careful and heartfelt, even if not perfectly executed. "This is for you, from your incredible daughter, and from all of us here who now know what an amazing family you've raised." But Ellen had another surprise in store. She turned to Maya with an expression of determination that her regular viewers would recognize. "Maya, you said your father is in the hospital." When Maya nodded, Ellen continued, "What if I told you we could bring Ellen to him instead of waiting for him to come to us?" Maya's eyes widened as Ellen pulled out her personal phone. "I'm calling my travel coordinator right now," Ellen announced to the audience and cameras. "We're going to Fresno and we're going to meet David Chen properly." The audience erupted in applause as Maya collapsed into Ellen's arms, overwhelmed by this unexpected turn. Ellen spent the next few minutes making calls on live television, her production team scrambling to coordinate an unprecedented same-day trip. She spoke with her travel coordinator, her security team, and the hospital in Fresno, all while keeping Maya close by her side. "Maya," Ellen said during one phone call, "what's your father's favorite song? We're bringing a full sound system so he can feel the vibrations." Maya's face lit up as she typed her response. "He loves What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. He says even though he can't hear it, he can feel it in his heart when I play it for him." Ellen immediately called her music director to arrange for a live acoustic performance of the song. Within an hour, Ellen had arranged for a full production crew to accompany her to Fresno. She spent the flight learning more ASL from Maya, practicing signs and asking about David's interests, his illness, and his dreams. Maya shared stories of how her father had worked as a carpenter before his diagnosis, how he'd taught her sign language as a child, and how Ellen's show had become their daily ritual of connection. Maya also revealed something that made Ellen's heart ache. "Dad always says he wishes he could hear your laugh, so I describe it to him every day. I tell him it sounds like sunshine and happiness mixed together." Ellen was so moved by this that she began learning to sign her appreciation for David's love and Maya's devotion. The surprise visit to Fresno Community Medical Center became one of the most moving moments in Ellen's show history. David Chen's face when Ellen walked into his hospital room, signing "Hello, I'm Ellen, and I'm here because your daughter loves you," was pure joy mixed with disbelief. The three of them spent 2 hours together, with Ellen learning basic conversation in ASL and David sharing his woodworking photos through Maya's translation. Ellen arranged for David's medical bills to be covered through her foundation and commissioned him to create a custom wooden sign for her show, featuring both English and ASL translations of her motto, "Be kind." But more importantly, she established a new monthly segment called Silent Voices, featuring deaf and hard of hearing guests and stories. The episode featuring Maya and David's story became one of the most watched in the show's history, not because of celebrity guests or big giveaways, but because viewers witnessed pure love and connection transcending barriers. Ellen received thousands of letters from deaf and hard of hearing viewers who had never felt represented on mainstream television. 6 months later, David Chen's health had improved dramatically, and he was able to attend a live taping as Ellen's special guest. He brought the wooden sign he'd created for her show, inscribed with both English and ASL representations of kindness. Ellen learned to conduct that entire episode with both spoken words and sign language interpretation. Maya went on to study ASL interpretation in college, inspired by watching her father's joy at being truly seen and understood by someone he admired. She became a regular volunteer for Ellen's foundation, helping to bridge communication gaps for families dealing with hearing loss and serious illness. The wooden sign David created still hangs prominently on Ellen's set, serving as a daily reminder that her show reaches into lives and homes in ways she might never fully understand. Ellen continued her ASL education, eventually becoming conversational enough to conduct interviews entirely in sign language when needed. David Chen returned to work as a carpenter and began creating custom furniture pieces that incorporated both visual beauty and tactile elements for deaf and hard of hearing clients. His workshop became a gathering place for the deaf community in Fresno, a space where Ellen's message of kindness was lived out daily through craft and connection. The impact of Maya's brave moment in Ellen's audience extended far beyond one family or one show. It sparked conversations about accessibility and entertainment, led to increased ASL interpretation at live events, and reminded millions of viewers that communication comes in many forms, all of them valid and beautiful. Ellen learned something that day that changed how she approached every show afterward. That her audience wasn't just the people in the studio seats, but also the countless others watching from hospital beds, living rooms, and quiet spaces where her show provided connection and joy. Maya's courage to speak for her father opened Ellen's eyes to the responsibility she carried as someone whose smile truly was the same in every language. Years later, when people ask Ellen about her most meaningful moments in television, she often mentions the afternoon when a 16-year-old girl taught her that love doesn't need sound to be heard. David and Maya Chen became part of Ellen's extended family, regular guests who reminded her show's audience that the most powerful conversations sometimes happen without words at all. The lesson Maya and David taught Ellen and millions of viewers is both simple and profound, that being seen, being understood, and being loved are fundamental human needs that transcend any barrier. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is learn someone else's language, not just the words, but the heart behind them. Because that's what love looks like when it crosses every boundary. That's what kindness sounds like in the silence between words. And that's what happens when a teenage daughter's courage gives voice to a father's quiet devotion, creating ripples of understanding that spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined. 5 years later, Maya Chen graduated summa cum laude with a degree in ASL interpretation, and Ellen was there in the front row, signing her applause, alongside David, who had tears streaming down his face. The wooden sign David created for Ellen's set had become legendary among fans. But what mattered most was the quiet revolution it represented, proof that love finds a way to be heard, even in silence. Ellen still practices her sign language daily, not for cameras or audiences, but because she learned that Friday afternoon that some conversations are too important to miss. Every time she signs "I love you" to someone who needs to hear it without sound, she remembers Maya's courage and David's quiet devotion, understanding that her show was never really about entertainment. It was about connection. David's workshop in Fresno now displays a photo of the three of them from that hospital visit. And visitors often ask about the famous talk show host who learned to speak with her hands. But David always corrects them. "She didn't learn my language, She learned my heart. And sometimes, when Ellen is alone on her empty stage after a long day of filming, she practices the signs Maya taught her, sending silent messages of love out into the world where countless fathers and daughters are watching, waiting to be seen. Because that's what real television magic looks like. Not the bright lights or celebrity guests, but the moment when someone realizes they're not invisible anymore, that their story matters, and that love truly is the same in every language.